I was thinking, Bitcoin is kind of like this portal of going from a high entropy financial system, a lot of disorder, a lot of low energy, misdirected energy, perverse incentives, to a low entropy financial system. Because if the base layer of Bitcoin is the engineered truth, it's the pure truth of the system, then that could be a base layer in order to actually, build upon. And the more economic energy is eventually stored in Bitcoin, the higher its probability of surviving if more people put their energy towards that, which is lower entropy, eventually leads to more order. And this is what I got from the My Big Toe podcast. When I was listening to it, he said, lower entropy means higher stability, higher predictability, higher potential for growth. And then I was like, wow, that sounds like Bitcoin as a base layer for a monetary system.
Yeah. Well, let's see here. I think all social orders, right? So we're going to have, again, predictable relations and behaviors among people. These require people to accord themselves with a certain framework. Morality is a great example, right? Just the fact that we can generally expect not to be killed or robbed when we go outside of our house in most normal modern societies, right? That is an element of social order, that we have internalized these rules, right? These moral principles that we in general don't hurt one another or don't steal from one another. That's what allows us to interact with strangers at scale, right? Which is, by the way, a very weird thing. Animals don't do that too much. Animals stick to their little pod or their little herd or their little tribe, whatever you want to call it. They don't build global societies where we just sort of, glide by strangers. We even, purposely try to interact with strangers, right? We'll go out of our way to talk to someone, or we try to make new friends, or to meet someone at a party, or social mixers, all these things. This is where we have created systems that allow us to interact with strangers in a way that nature didn't really afford us, right? So, so I call these like points of common unity, right? We say like, don't kill, don't steal. It could be moral, could be also a little more external, like the rule of law. We follow the law of the land. You know that there's consequences if you do a certain thing. You drive in your lane, right? You'll use a blinker to go into this lane. Like these are all things that everyone's doing. And as a generalized expectation, it allows us all to flow together more seamlessly. These points of common unity are essential to community, right? You can't have community. That's where you get the word. Community it's built on points of common unity. And so these are the rules that, let's say, reward productive acts and penalize destructive or non-productive acts. Right? That's why we don't kill. That's why we don't steal. That's why we use our blinker. Even little things, right? Like holding the door open for someone, right? It's just kind of a general like what would you call that? Like a chivalry or a manner, an act, a mannerism, something like that. It just helps people. It's the nice thing to do because you've already got the door open. You already went through it. Why would you let it shut in someone's face if you could just, expend a little bit extra energy to hold it open so they could pass through easily, right? So that's like another just kind of generalized practice. So why do we do all that? And how does it relate to entropy? Well, nature and let's see the horizon of the future, right? The future is always coming at us.
Yes.
Nonstop. So one thing we cannot do anything about. With that onrushing horizon of the future comes uncertainty, right? We never know what's going to happen next, right? We have very minimal capacity to predict into the future and almost no capacity to predict into the future once you get into complex systems, which is almost everything, right? So we are constantly facing an avalanche or a deluge of uncertainty, which you could equally call entropy, right? The entropy is just coming at us all the time. So what do we do to try and survive in that? Is like, well, we create order, right? We create culture, we create capital stocks, we accumulate goods and tools and machines and factories and all of these things that can allow us to produce more consumer goods per unit of human effort than we otherwise could. And we do all these things collaboratively. So this activity of engaging in markets together, of economic calculation, of trying to create profitable businesses that satisfy consumer wants better, faster, cheaper, the act of capital accumulation, all of these activities are entropy mitigation. We're just trying to mitigate entropy so that we can actually have more leisure. We can raise more children, right? We can have a greater degree of certainty in the resources available to us to support other people coming online, right? Like people being born, kids need to be raised. Like there's a reason women are attracted to men that have better financial footing, right? It's not just because women like nice things. I mean, of course, some women do like luxury and people like luxury broadly, but women really there's like a biological evolutionary impulse to be with a man that can give you a plot of territory and resources for child rearing, right? There's a reason women, they use that as basically a heuristic, right? If this man has been successful financially, well, that means he's somewhat respected probably in the social order. So he has some social status and he has resources through which we can replicate our genes into the future. And so going back to like the beginning of order, it's like if you actually want this, you want to expand the light circle of explored territory, right? You want to create a larger footprint within which humans can, have leisure and flourish and play and do art, all the things that that aren't work, basically. Obviously, it takes a lot of work to build that. But in building that, we give ourselves freedom to be human. All of that requires order. And requires these points of common unity, which are a form of order in and of themselves, and that we can just expect each other to do these things over time. And then with that comes community, right? We wire ourselves into community, and comes the mitigation of entropy. So we decrease uncertainty, we increase our ability to provide for ourselves into the future. And that is what lets us be fruitful and multiply. Right? If you really want to maximize being fruitful and multiplying, well, then you need all of these games. And the more these games are in accordance with, our biological impulses, let's say, like we all want to be able to have a little bit of territory on which we can kind of conserve food and resources, things that we've worked to obtain, and then raise a family. The more we accord with that natural reality, nature to be commanded must be obeyed. So the more we obey that, the more we can be fruitful and multiply.
I think one thing I would add to that is if we get there, if you lower your uncertainty towards the future, if you're able to do that, if you're able to create somewhat of a structure out of the chaos that is coming towards you at every moment, it also gives you the tooling, I'd say, to also live in that moment. Right? So appreciate the life, or experience the life that you've been given, more than you would perhaps been doing before.
Yeah, that's leisure, by the way. Right?
Yes.
Where you can just sit in the middle of the culture and the garden that you've created, right? Obviously, you engaged in a lot of work to create that, or maybe your ancestors engaged in the work, right? But you can sit there. Right now, I'm sitting in my home, right? I'm surrounded by books. I've got nice lights and air conditioning. I'm very comfortable. I mean, I didn't build all this stuff. I didn't think about all these ideas, right? We inherited all of this. But the fact that I can sit here and have, work, leisure, I don't know. I'm enjoying talking to you, so I'll call it leisure. The fact that I can sit here and have the freedom to do this, it's not my own doing, right? I inherited a lot from a lot of people across time.
I think even having that time makes you appreciate
Try doing that when you're naked in the middle of the night in the jungle somewhere.
Yes. But I think even having that and then reflect, like it makes you grateful for that.
Yes.
Right? But you need to have the time to even ponder this.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. It's interesting that that's such a recurring thing that's coming back when you talk about also like the distortion of fiat money, right? It's actually fueling the chaos that is going towards you because the rules are changing all the time. And
that's right.
If Bitcoin is a structured, predictable order, and fiat money is an unstructured, unpredictable chaos, because Bitcoin is structured and predictable, it gives us a solid base layer to actually explore. I think that's what we're talking about, right? Like explore the unknown or search maybe even on purpose for chaos and possible innovation, right? Like in a conscious way, instead of being an actor instead of being a subject to the chaos that is inevitably part of this version of our physical life.
That's what investment and entrepreneurship is, right? You've accumulated some resources to provide for you for a period of time, right? So you don't need to work. You don't need to go fishing every day to feed yourself, right? You've got a freezer full of fish, for instance, right? And you can apply that to all the different domains of human needs. But now you've given yourself the freedom to go and, as you said, pursue chaos, right? You need to actually go into the world and try something new, right? Like, I'm going to try to create this Chinese Mexican food restaurant, fusion restaurant. Like maybe people will like it, maybe they won't, right? But I'm going to go into the uncertainty, try to create something new. If it's successful and people like it, well, then I've just advanced the human race, right? People now have this awesome new fusion restaurant that they didn't have before. And if you don't, and it fails, well, then other entrepreneurs in that area are enlightened by your failure. When you go up in flames, they're enlightened because now they know, oh, that didn't work. That Chinese Mexican food restaurant does not work in this time, in this place. So let me try something else. All right. So it's this information that's flowing through every human act, and the experimentation and innovation that really advances us. You need that good base of capital stock to support all of that. And the good base of capital stock comes through these hard points of common unity, like people following the rules and accumulating wealth over time gives them the freedom to go out and experiment. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, click here to find more just like it, and here to find our most recent episode. Also, make sure to like this video to help shine light on the corruption of money, and be sure to subscribe to this channel to stay connected.